Hey everyone, welcome back to American Truck Simulator. And as you can see, we have an event to discuss. Actually, two. The second overlaps with this one. But first, here's something else that's new. That's right folks, I have a new rig since the last video. This is something I did when Iowa was released, and I completed all my tasks to earn the rewards for that event. This isn't just a repaint either. The Kenworth I have been driving was shifted over to one of my company drivers, at least for now. This one is completely new, with the purchase of the anniversary version. I wanted to keep the model, but I preferred the interior for the anniversary edition, and in the process, I figured, why not change up the appearance some? So, here's my updated semi. It doesn't have as much chrome or the stylized twirls the last one had. This time I wanted something that presented as a little bit more impactful. I kept the orange, but accentuated with the black and gray. In a way, this paint scheme kind of gives off race car vibes, but I like it. Alright, let's stop showing off. As was indicated at the beginning, I returned to the winter holiday event to enjoy the snow and work towards my rewards. Unfortunately, this time around, I missed doing any of the jobs before Christmas and instead didn't get to return until after the new year, as you can tell by the music, which I think is kind of a nice touch to show how things change depending on when you do the event. Although there's also a downside to this, which I'll explain in a bit. And even though I didn't get started until shortly into January, the event was still going at the time. It's done now though, finished about a week or two back. Although there was a surprise this year. The devs brought something new to Winterland that spiced things up and added a little extra challenge. And it should be coming by here shortly. That's right, traffic. While there's not a huge variety among the vehicles driving the roads of Winterland, they were unique and I wanted to see their details as best as possible. So I set about the task of sitting in various locations to watch them drive by. While this worked out decently enough, it didn't provide me with the depth and close-up examination I wanted. What it did provide was show me which vehicle models I would end up seeing the most. Kind of like how I see the fire truck, ambulance, and police emergency vehicles constantly driving around the regular game. The two most prevalent vehicles I saw in Winterland were the SUV, like the Bronco, and the compact Gremlin, Pinto, or Pacer cars. The problem with just sitting and watching them drive by was they were too fast to get a good look at them, unless they happened to slow down or stop right in front of me. But more than anything, they were just too far away to see the details I was looking for. Plus, it wasn't helping it any to try to perform this task at night. And in this situation, now I had the extra difficulty of peering through the magical portal snowfall. I had a lot of opportunity though. Daylight helped some, but looking through the snow glitter still wasn't ideal. The sun getting brighter helped slightly, but cloud cover kept obscuring the clarity. I needed to do something more drastic to get the views I wanted. The first attempt was to glance out the window as they passed. And too quick. But then it struck me by accident. Literally. It turned out this would end up being the best method I'd take to get those in-your-face close-ups. Another alternative I found was to just block the road completely. This is one of my favorites. This is another. And I was totally surprised by this collision. But it gave me a great view. This wouldn't be the last time I'd bump into him. As not even a minute later, this happened. Oops. Something cool about the cars driving around the city was experiencing this. Getting passed for going too slow. Although, sometimes I was driving too sporadically where they didn't feel comfortable enough to risk it. Alright, I've already messed with this guy enough. I might as well be nice and let him go on by.
In 650 feet, turn left.
Of course, on my journeys through Winterland, I did my usual sightseeing since this happens only once a year. Made sure to hit all the things I enjoyed at some point during my driving. Like the bridges, and I love the mountains in the background. Along with the snow-swept fields. Plus, a tour through the town. A jump through the tunnel. And taking a short break on the bridge. While irritating the other drivers. Enjoying the Christmas lights. and all while stopping by the various drop-off locations. But one of the things I noticed again was the music didn't really give me the Christmas holiday vibes. It just felt kind of generic. I don't know if this was because I came in after December 25th or if it was this way for the entire event. It was kind of a letdown though. This music was better. It seemed more fitting. I gotta say, I love seeing the snow falling at night. In addition, I said earlier there was a downside to doing this event after Christmas, which took me some time driving around before I figured it out. And that was, the train wasn't running anymore. I believe it was because December 25th had already passed and it didn't need to deliver the packages anymore. While this was fitting and kind of cool to see the devs take that into consideration, it was also kind of sad, and I miss hearing it drive around. Sort of. I'll explain what I mean later. Something else about driving in Winterland while enjoying all the scenery was that I experienced a few incidents as well.
If possible, please turn around.
It pays to watch where you're going. At least, it should. Along with watching your speed. But sometimes it's just engine problems. Of course, it could have been an error in how I configured this controller that caused this particular problem as well. The accidents weren't the only thing I struggled with during these two events. Another one I was getting frustrated with is the parking. Something I dealt with for both events, and I'll address why I think that is later. Luckily, after dropping off that load, my next job was an easy pickup. Eventually, I finished my last job in Winterland. And I got leveled up because of it. And with that, the Woven Wonders of Winterland was done, and I can focus on completing the other overlapping event. But here are the rewards I earned for doing all that snow hauling and driving. And lastly, I earned a badge on the World of Trucks website. Farewell, Winterland. We'll see you again next year. Next up, Louisiana. And here are some of the cities I had already visited while doing the Winterland portion. To start off, I did end up visiting every city in the state, and while I wasn't recording for all of them, here's a sample of those moments I did manage to get.
Keep to the right, and then turn right.
Now, I said I'd come back to this topic, and here it is in full force. Although I miss seeing and hearing the trains in Winterland, Louisiana was full of them. So, when I said I was sort of sad I missed them in the snow, well, driving through this state more than made up for it. There was an abundance of them everywhere. And even if I didn't see them, I heard them. And then other times, I didn't hear them, but I saw them. But most of the time, it was both. I told you I crossed paths with a plethora of them. And just because I wasn't in Winterland didn't mean I avoided getting into any trouble and having a few incidents here and there.
In 650 feet, turn left.
I apparently didn't slow down enough. Plus, I have turning issues.
In 650 feet, turn right.
And lane changing issues.
Keep to the right. And then, take the exit on the right.
And here, I wasn't paying attention to the GPS and missed my turn completely. Which required me to reposition myself. But I didn't do that exactly right either. As I'm about to cause more accidents than just to myself. I narrowly missed that one. Are you impressed with my driving skills yet? Who needs the driving academy?
Navigation resumed.
Oh boy. Nothing to see here. Now this incident was a result of a mod I have installed that hides the floating green icons to tell me where I need to go to perform an action. And in this case, I didn't notice the
You have
replacement
arrived
white
at your
painted square that was
destination.
on the ground. Which also required me to make a correction. Here's some more skillful driving. As if it wasn't bad enough for me to just drive normally. To add to these wonderful moments, as you've probably noticed already, there are many times I wanted to spice the video by trying to drive while using a different camera angle. Definitely not the smartest thing to be doing. Although, it can make for some amazing scenes if done right. Just not here. See? Perfect driving. No accidents at all. No problem. Of course, night driving just makes matters worse. As I'd end up swerving all over the place. I'd eventually end up stopping at a service shop for repairs, only to make a poor decision getting to it. Now, fully repaired, I got back on the road. Just to have this happen almost immediately. Because I thought it'd be cool to get an external view of the water tower at night with the lighting on it. That was a bad decision. A really bad decision. It does look cool though. That wasn't the last time I'd be dealing with the cops either. This next sequence of events was most likely because I didn't have my lights turned on yet as the sun was going down. I guess I wasn't the only one having problems. Now, sit back and enjoy the music as we take a tour of Louisiana.
resume. In 650 feet, turn left. You have arrived at your destination.
was fun. But now let's return back to my parking. It wasn't always perfect. And some were definitely easier than others. Sorry, just admiring my rig right here. But many were just a matter of lining up right, or taking a little patience to maneuver into position. As I mentioned in Winterland that I'd come back to, something I've noticed is that as I've gained experience and leveled up my driver, the drop-off locations and parking have become increasingly more difficult. It seems to happen more and more to me. And while I can understand the point of it, because I'm supposed to be a more proficient driver, it actually kind of annoys me because I like to play the games to relax. And challenges are great to overcome and are there to provide a sense of accomplishment. But when the task becomes excessively difficult, it loses that relaxing intent and does the opposite by inducing stress. At least it does to me, which defeats the purpose. Maybe that's why I haven't tried the driving academy yet. But then again, maybe that's why I should. So here's one of the best examples of what I'm talking about and how excessively difficult the parking challenges have become for me. Now, while I've driven vehicles with tows many times in real life and done a good job parking them, I'm not a professional trucker, and this just isn't my cup of tea and not something I want to do. Plus, if you watch my previous trucking videos, or any other game for that matter, I like to try to do it as realistically as I can, which usually means doing all the positioning while in the cabin looking around. And as you can see here, I got annoyed and switched to the external view, which still didn't seem to help much. I usually pick the hardest parking choices to get the increase in experience, but I'm beginning to think that once I reach max level, I'm just going to stick with the easier ones in the future. Here's another example of how horrendously I did at trying to park my trailer.
And then turn right.
Ooh, that's a tight fit. Back to the external cab view. And at this point, it wasn't backing up anymore, and it just kept turning. Let's just move that other trailer out of the way. See? There's more room now. Not that it's really helped much. All I can say is I feel like I'm severely out of practice. Ugh. Really? Like a glove. He means not perfect. Anyway, all that leads me to this. My final job in Louisiana and dropping off the cargo. And while this was one of the few times I actually passed a fellow trucker, it's the scenery with all the trees I enjoyed as it reminded me once more of my trip to North Carolina. Plus, it was pretty crazy seeing all that traffic coming on the other side of the road. That's a lot of traffic. And I'm kind of glad it's not on my side. Look at it all. Regardless, it felt calm driving this stretch of road, getting away from the big cities with only a few buildings here and there. This leads to something else I forgot about, and I was taking for granted with all my trips to Winterland. Every trip through the portal topped off my fuel tank, and I was fully rested. With my trips there over, and focusing solely on Louisiana, this job finally hit my exhaustion limit. But I would push my driving as much as I could. Until, eventually I started losing my vision and closing my eyes. We're almost there. Come on, light, change.
Keep to the left, and then turn left.
Now I've got to turn through this.
In 650 feet, turn left.
The end's in sight. Just need to park. Right there. I can do this. Oops. While this wasn't quite the same level of struggles I was having on some of the other locations, it still gave me a little bit of trouble. And there you go. I got a ticket for not resting in time. But at least the job was finally done. And that would be my last job for the Louisiana event. While I had its ups and downs, I actually really enjoyed doing this one. And here are the rewards I earned for it. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the time spent here with me going through the snow and swamps. And I'm not sure when next I'll be back, as I'm actually quite a bit behind on editing and getting my videos out. Just to let you know, here's a clue for one I hope to tackle soon. Until next time, as usual, I wish you all the best, happy trucking, take care, God bless, bye. What in the world is going on here? It's doing laps. And now this glitch is spreading? Coming back again. How much gas do these trucks need? Yeah, that's so weird.